Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's the Tea with Gen X, Y, and Z. We are three generations, three perspectives, one cup of truth. So get ready for a refreshing take on hot button topics. We are going to be brewing up a steaming hot take on today's most pressing issues, where we're going to dish on everything from pop culture to social justice with humor, honesty, and maybe even a little bit of healthy debate. We're going to sip the tea, spill the honest truth, and find common ground across the generations. This show is informative, it is insightful, and it is guaranteed to stir the pot. So, hello, guys. I am Dr. Melissa, and as always, I am representing the X Factor.
And what's up, y'all? I'm Amber, holding it down for us Millennials.
And I'm Zion, keeping it real for Gen Z.
Amen, amen. So let's just first say welcome back to Z.
Thank you.
Yes,
I almost
yes.
forgot I was going.
Yeah, you were gone. X and Y was trying to hold it down. It was difficult not to have our Zer at the table.
I know.
But I think we're almost done with vacation season. So
Almost maybe
Scorpio
not. Season's coming up soon in the fall.
Amen.
Yay.
Damn.
You know what almost means? Almost means never, unfortunately, in some cases.
But here's the thing, you guys. We're so committed to bringing you the tea that, as you saw last week, Zion streamed in from a location that's undisclosed. We don't even want to know.
Mm-hmm. The snow's very hot. Very hot.
He said it was very hot. So he says he's got to live right.
Yeah.
Did you have fun at least?
You can read into that.
I had some fun.
Yay.
But
That's
boy,
good.
do I miss the temperature over here.
So you guys, speaking of hot,
Stinky.
we got a hot topic today for you. Today, we're going to be talking about cancel culture. Ooh, yeah. And you guys, I don't think it even gets hotter than that topic.
Nope.
It's such a huge phenomenon.
It is.
And what the way I wanted to start off the episode is there may be some Xers like me who really don't have a clear understanding of the whole concept of cancel culture, because you guys, I didn't either. Okay, I was like, what is that, when it became a thing? So of course we got our resident Google University scholar at the table, and so we're going to go ahead and let him give us the academic definition of cancel culture.
Of course. And it's just important that we go ahead and just provide y'all for definition so we all have the same foundation, therefore promoting the same understanding. So for this Google definition on cancel culture can be summarized as the phenomenon or practice of publicly rejecting, boycotting, or ending support for particular people or groups because of their socially or morally unacceptable views or actions. Cancel culture can ruin careers, but it can also make a public figure think twice about posting controversial comments.
Ooh. Couple words stood out for me. Where my ex people at? Boycott, we know about that. You know, some of those things that you mentioned are not new tactics, right? So what is it that makes this whole cancel culture different?
Yeah.
Like that, when I think about it, these are tactics. We've always had mechanisms to hold people accountable.
Right.
And I think we even talked about that during one of our episodes where we talked about engaging in tactics to promote social justice, social change, right? But I think what's different about this is the extent to the consequences and ramifications.
Right.
That's when you said like ruining careers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? That's the academic definition. What's your take on cancel culture?
You want to go, Z? Or you want me to go ahead and...
We could change it. You said social change. How about we do environmental change? Let's go ahead and start off with me first. So
Okay.
My own perspective on cancel culture is, I know I just provided y'all the academic or just Google definition of it. I know the two words that really stood out to me was morally or socially unacceptable. So to me, cancel culture can go too far just because, and it's really mainstream now, like you said, the ramifications and consequences are to a severe extent. And having social media now has really made things visible that wouldn't have been visible in the past. I'm not going to get too much into that. I'll go ahead and delve into that into our second segment. But socially unacceptable to me shouldn't be a consensus, because I feel like sometimes we misinterpret what's socially unacceptable and what's actually immoral. So you can't confuse the two. So I feel like a lot of times people use that as a standing to indoctrinate people or indoctrinate groups. And then it's a lot of bigotry where this is my perspective, this is the social general perspective, and if you don't follow it, you're canceled, even though you're not technically being immoral, depending on what it is.
Right.
Now, I do think it's a good system and it's a good mechanism, as you said, to hold people accountable. However, it can get overboard.
What's your perspective on cancel culture?
So my perspective really is like thinking about how I am as a person. And sometimes we mess up words. And we might say things that we don't mean in that given moment. Or sometimes we don't even understand what we're saying, right? We're using words that we don't really understand the full definition on.
Right.
And, me as a person, I feel like that shouldn't, I'm not going to say it shouldn't cancel me, but you shouldn't hold that to me for forever and ever and ever and ever.
Right.
Now, get me right and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't use that. Cool.
Right.
I'm going to know better next time.
Right.
But here we are telling somebody, well, you got to know better next time, but we still keep holding that to them, right? Don't give them the option to even rewrite their wrong. Just because they might have said something wrong. You say something wrong now on television, on social media, yeah, you can delete it, but it ain't deleted from everybody's minds. Like, it takes a split second for somebody to screenshot what you said or record what you said, and it's just blasted all over.
Right, and if I could add on to that too, I forgot to mention that in my first portion, a lot of things, especially when you consider social media or just looking at a 15-second post or picture, or like you said, a screenshot of a text, it can be taken out of context.
Exactly.
So we have to be careful who we cancel. There has to be a more, I guess, like a rigid process and structure to it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It can't be arbitrary.
Yeah, and it needs to be a clear reason to why. You get what I'm saying? Somebody mess up on a word or, say something they weren't supposed to say when you could clearly know that they were trying to say something else, but they said this, but you're holding that to them. When it's clear evidence that they was literally trying to say something else, but now it's following them for the rest of their lives.
Can't leave no room for no subjectivity at all.
Exactly. So obviously the Y and the Z clearly have a perspective on this.
Absolutely.
What amazes me listening to you guys is that from an X perspective, you guys are the reason why this is happening. Yeah. Let me just tell from the X perspective. We're like, oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree. You guys sort of created this. Cancel culture. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. A couple words came out when you guys were talking. When you said moral and social, what was the word you said after that?
Morally and socially unacceptable.
Unacceptable, which is subjective.
Absolutely.
What's acceptable and to whom? Right. Don't get me wrong. There are some social norms that are in stone.
Right.
Yeah. And we're talking about abuse. When we're talking about things that are discriminatory, when we're talking about things that are hurtful and harmful, we can all agree on that. Okay. Right. But here's the thing. A whole lot of this has subjectivity into it. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you from my perspective, and we'll talk about the generational perspective after the break, but we're a part of a generation. Right? So understand that we all, and each of you, have your own individual take on whatever. And so we're not pigeonholed by the year that we were born. So we say all the time, I can't speak for every Xer. I speak from a perspective. But let me tell you about my personal perspective is I believe in grace and I believe in mercy. And to your point, both of you points, it's a moment of a misstep, right? When something that I say or do, and I'm not talking about these huge infractions, moral infractions, right? I'm talking about saying the wrong word, using a phrase that can be taken out of context, right? And for there to be no way to come back from that, right? It's scary to me. I'm not saying, and we'll talk about that more, that there aren't some advantages to the whole cancel culture. Because I really do think, to your point a few weeks ago, that the ability to hold people's feet to the fire has really given us a platform, especially for those people that felt like they were too big to fall.
Exactly.
Right? That, the powers that be, I'm untouchable. No, you're touchable.
Right.
Because cancel culture will reach out and touch you. And I
Really?
promise you, nobody is safe.
Nobody's bigger than cancel culture.
Nobody's cancel culture. But I will say, it's scary to me when you said, and very transparently, myself as well.
Yeah.
Every word I say does not necessarily come out right. And here's even the bigger piece to that. Sometimes it's not even that I said it wrong. It's that we work in sound bites now. Yeah. People take a sound bite, a snippet of a whole conversation, and say, this is what she said.
Yes.
You did not include the sentence or paragraph before or
no
after.
Context, no
right.
Context.
And then you loop. Everything is selective. And then it's looped. And you're saying it over and over again. Yeah. And so for me, cancel culture is powerful. Yes. But we have to be responsible with it, because with great power, Spider-Man, comes great responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it was good that you touched on, the grace, because, sometimes, just speaking for myself, sometimes I get down on myself because I'm a free-spirited person. So when I feel like I have to, and it depends on the setting, don't get me wrong, because, when you're in work, of course, you got to be professional. But if I have to think before I speak, even just outside socially, just conversating, then we got a problem, because now I'm having to literally think in my mind, well, I got to say this and I can't say that. It takes the authenticity out of stuff, right? And it make you feel like you just robotic, and these marketing agencies and these PR agencies making a killing because now it's something that's needed, even needed in your individual life. And sometimes it makes you kind of want to be socially awkward. You just want to stay in your own bubble, making not really want to talk to individuals because you're like, well, I'm protected in my own home. Just talk to myself, even though, you might get diagnosed with something, but
we'll have you come into the behavioral health agency.
Exactly, because you want to talk to yourself versus wanting to talk to other individuals, because you really don't know what you can and can't say, because it can be held against you.
Right. Exactly. And I did want to just point out, just kind of on Dr. M's point, I wanted to bring out a term, gatekeeping, and just that certain people, like when you look at, for example, social media and you see a snippet or just a screenshot of what was said without having the full context. Yeah. I want to go ahead and hold people accountable to people who do post certain information like that, knowing it's not the full information. So as the audience, the receiver, be mindful of what's published and be mindful of what you received, and don't make an assumption or jump to a conclusion without receiving the full information, because that's what makes cancel culture so powerful. Yes. It's the power of the people. So it depends how it's received at the end of the day. Yeah. So, I did want to mention, when we talk about societal and just moral values and all that good stuff, there is a way to have a conversation without discriminating anyone or being derogatory to anyone, or just, just challenging people's beliefs and values. There is a way to have a conversation, because I never want to encourage conversation that is punitive or just discriminative of other individuals as well. So, I talk about cancel culture in regards to there needs to be more. I feel like it's taking out individual values and perspectives. So when I talk about how it's being misused, I'm talking about how people can be conformed to really generally social values that do not resemble actual social laws, like actual legal laws.
Yeah. So when you're saying this, well, and I'm going to say, and this was, I'm hearing both of you say this. Mm-hmm. You said this so concretely when you talked about not feeling free to be authentic. Mm-hmm. Even if we talk about in the U.S. where we are here politically, there's a whole movement about a pushback from being politically correct, right? That I can't say this, I can't say that, because I'll get canceled. And to your point, it really does start to strip away a little bit of the authenticity. Right. Please do not get me wrong. There's a need for civility. Mm-hmm. There's a need for respect. Yes. Like we can talk about things that from our perspectives without condescending on other people, without being discriminatory or dismissive of other people. And if that's the way you're doing it, okay, that's a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother show. We'll see y'all next time on that one, right?
Absolutely.
But what I'm talking about is being able to, as you said, when you get to the point that you don't feel free to have a conversation, full transparency, even with us doing the show, we are very free-flowing, organic, authentic. If you ain't know that by now, if we got a brain fart, we say we got a brain fart.
Yeah.
If we get it mixed up with the dad had, like we are. If we can't be authentic, there's no reason to do this, right?
Exactly.
But I'm going to tell you, we talked about this one because even with doing the show, you have to be concerned about being counseled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you say something that offended somebody else?
Yeah.
Did you say something that someone perceived as being whatever?
Right.
And it goes to your point that we have to be responsible. To your point, our speech needs to be precise. It needs to be clear. It needs to be filled with the same kind of respect and grace that we want for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I will stand on that forever.
All day long.
But we also need to be able to say, this is my perspective on this situation. Right. It's okay if it's not your perspective.
Exactly.
When we say acceptable, to who? Like,
Right.
what you might think about, you may say tomato, I say tomato.
Right.
Guess what? It's a red fruit. Like,
Right.
in all honesty, why I got to say it the way you say it.
Right.
So that is one of the things that I think is scary about cancel culture, because to your point, I think it strips away at our ability to just be true and authentic in some ways.
Yeah, be yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's definitely a scary situation. And for a person like me that's, again, free-spirited and like to say what comes in their mind, you just got to be cognizant of what you say these days. And sometimes that can be, a little disheartening because you talking to someone and you're like, well, I really want them to know the real me. You can't really say you know the real me if I'm having to not fabricate what I say, but, think deep into what I have to say next.
So listen, you guys, we're going to take this break. When you throw something juicy on the table right before it's a break, it's like, it's not fair. But I'm going to say this. Amber said, you can't be yourself. And that is the real thing that we want you to take away from this. And we'll come back from the break and talk about that more.
Yeah.
How you can strike that balance. Because not being yourself is just simply a non-negotiable for me. That's non-negotiable. Amen. So we'll see you guys. We're going to take a quick 30-second break. Now listen, don't get canceled, because we will cancel you. Mess around and come back 2 minutes after and miss something. You're going to get canceled.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you in 30 seconds.
Catch the wave of success with Standing on Business with Dr. Melissa. Unlock your purpose, align it with your entrepreneurial spirit, and witness your business thrive. This isn't just about authenticity, it's about building a foundation so solid, your business becomes synonymous with profitability. Tune in as we delve into marketing strategies that work and create an empire that stands on business. Because when purpose meets strategy, success is inevitable. Standing on Business with Dr. Melissa, where authenticity meets profitability.
Okay, thank you for returning from the break. Thank you for rocking with us with What's the Tea with Gen X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. So remember before we went to break, we were talking about, or I was specifically talking about being scared of what you can and can't say. So I was doing some research, and it was 3 specific words that, when looking up cancel culture from a generational perspective, what these 3 words meant to all of our generations. So one of the words for the Ys were censorship, and one of the words for the Xers were punishment, and one of the words for the Zers was accountability, right? So, for me, I'm going to talk about the censorship part. It is, what censorship means, and where you watch a TV and they have the, on the certain words when people say bad words, right?
Yes.
So for us, we're not saying that cancel culture is a bad thing,
Right.
because with certain movements, certain topics, the word need to be spread where people need to understand what's happening.
Yes.
But like you said, sometimes it can get done too much where we're like, hey, when does it end? So we're kind of like it's good and bad, but we don't really have like a complete stance. We're kind of like the middlers with it, right? So with censorship, I feel like that's a perfect term for us, because when it's good, yeah, we're gonna push for it. When it's bad, we gotta have a censor where we can say, hey, look, it is bad, but I'm gonna need for y'all to kind of tone it down some, because we're not gonna keep drilling it to a person where it's detrimental to their career, right? Where does it end? So that's why I feel like it is with the wires. But I'm gonna throw it out to you guys so you can speak more about it from your generational perspective, right?
And thank you,
I
thank
like
you
it.
for deferring that task to me.
Of course.
So
Who said it was to him? She didn't say. Okay, but go ahead.
she
I didn't
looked at me,
specify.
so she gave me a visual cue. So.
I didn't specify, but I was looking at him. So
Look.
both of you guys are entirely right.
Back to the context. Back to the context. But I think accountability is a perfect word for us. We're in an age now, like I mentioned earlier, everything's a lot more visible. And I know in my first segment, I had my own perspective where I appreciated cancel culture, but I could do without it in some cases. But I do want to emphasize how beneficial it is towards people and groups. So you have, like, we're in an age now, social media, and there's constantly eyes on you, especially celebrities and an authority. Yeah. I do want to provide a brief example. I'm not going to mention this person's full name, but it starts with a P and ends with something else. Okay, that could be that was ongoing for years, and all we had before social media and all this, digital video footage and all that was speculation. And so now when we're in a digital age where a lot of people are held accountable because most of their platforms are digital platforms. So what becomes their blessing now becomes their curse. Because now you have so many followers who pay attention to you. So stuff like that can't get away in a modern age. And I believe it's so beneficial towards, of course, the victims and to groups. We don't stand for any hate crimes or hate speech. There's a lot of accountability, especially when you come to people with power, i.e. celebrities, especially. You have celebrities, they get to this status and they think they're untouchable. And just it makes you think how much stuff we missed within that duration. But now, you have stuff that resurfaced 2-3 years ago that is still ongoing behavior. But because we have social media and because we have tangible stuff like text messages, rather than just verbal words that can be disregarded and you can't show any proof of that, now people are held accountable. So I think it's a real beneficial thing. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't say one kind. So I'm going to say one kind by cancel culture. And that is with celebrities. I do believe because they're celebrities, they do get less grace. Now, I think it's good we hold them accountable when they do. Again, immoral activities, immoral behavior.
Great point.
But we have this expectation that they're perfect, and they're not. They're just like us.
And they're humans.
So when we see something that's not necessarily immoral, but something you wouldn't expect, you don't bash them, don't ridicule them. They're human just like you.
Absolutely.
So, I love
keep it going where they start to think that they're doing something wrong when, they always tell you you're human.
Right.
You're not perfect.
Right.
So just because they got a social status doesn't make them not human, right?
Well, what I'll say, I'll go back to Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. Absolutely. To your point, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, they live under the microscope. Mm-hmm. And probably with the kind of scrutiny that most of us wouldn't want. I mean, I can take a run real quick to the Winn-Dixie and maybe not be pulled together, and it's okay. If Rihanna does that, there's going to be 1,000 pictures out there. So here's what I heard you say from your illustrious research.
Yes, thank you.
The 3 words. So I heard Zers, they see cancel culture from the lens of accountability. So mostly beneficial.
Yes.
Even with that caveat of the con that you had.
Absolutely.
I heard you use the word punishment for Xers. I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to elaborate on it because I'm going to say I think that's not incorrect. And I heard you say that why is the censorship? So you guys are like the police. Yep. You're kind of like, it can be good, but it can be bad. Whereas Zers are primarily looking at it from a positive lens. Right. Xers, okay. Let me unpack the whole punishment thing. Let me first say that I think cancel culture has been beneficial in a lot of ways and has given voice to movements like Me Too and Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. Things that, to your point, Zion, things that were happening eons and eons ago, but there was no evidence. It was he say, versus she say. Yep. And if he said I didn't do it and she said I did, but now you can actually see a video of what happened. And what you can't lie about is that video that we saw. We saw that video. And so it's clear what happened. Or is it? I'll come back to that. But from the punishment standpoint, I do feel like from the ex perspective, because we didn't come up in a time where these things that you say or do is granulated forever. Like it's galvanized. You say the wrong thing, you use a out-of-pocket word. In this age, it's on video, it's on, back in the day, if I wrote a letter, one of the letters I did in the other episode, I folded it up and I said a bad word or I said something not kind, okay? Chances of that letter resurfacing is very slim. And even if somebody did have it, that won't me. Who said I wrote that, right? But we didn't have that level of evidence, right? So what do I feel about when I say punishment? I think when you get to my age, from the ex perspective, you've lived on this earth long enough to know that people change, that we fall short, that we make mistakes. Right. I shudder to think that I could be held accountable today for something I said when I was 16. Y'all, I promise you. I was one of those kids. I was in the AP classes. I was in the honor classes. But the late, great Walter Keyes, who was my principal, spent a lot of time with me in high school. And it wasn't because I was an AP student or honor student. Okay? So when I look at my life now and how I've changed and grown and gotten better, it's scary to me, and for some of us Xers when we talk about cancel culture, that one moment in time where I fall short, where I'm angry, where I'm frustrated, where I have one of those dumb moments and I say something like, what in the crap was I saying, could cancel my whole career? Yeah. Like I could lose everything from a soundbite? Oh, that's scary. And so it does feel like punishment. It almost feels like there are some groups when we talk about what's acceptable. Because what I say is not acceptable to you, you can now target me and cancel me because I don't share the same political or socioeconomical or religious or sexual orientation views as you. And so let's be clear. Sometimes cancel culture is used to punish people for not falling in line with a line of thinking or philosophy that somebody else think you might need to have. And conformity is the word. So this is where, when we say punishment, I'm not saying it's not valuable. And I'm not saying it hasn't done great things as far as holding people accountable. It has. But I am saying that it can go rogue. And people get canceled. And I've seen people's whole careers just...
Okay, and I wanted to add on to that, if I could, Dr. Aaron, with just an example and a question. So the example would be is you're 100% right. A lot of times people, their whole career is ruined just off of what was done. And sometimes, as if y'all remember, I mentioned earlier in the episode about speculation. Yeah. An example I want to use, and I'm going to just go ahead and say his name.
Don't get canceled, though. Go ahead.
I don't know if you've been in touch with Jonathan Majors. He was, I think, a year back accused of domestic violence. Yep. And then during that whole court and process, that whole legal process, he lost so many deals and so many brands, and he was literally taken off Marvel, which was literally the pinnacle of his whole career, Absolutely. As an actor. And then later on, when they found out that he wasn't, accused of what he actually was accused of, he never recovered. Yeah. His career never fully recovered, at least in regards to those deals and those brands and the opportunity to become an actor for Marvel again and all that. So,
let me tell you why, though, because there's always somebody who's going to still believe the soundbite. Like, because we're in this media age, and it depends on what you read and who you read it from. Right. Yeah. And that goes to when we talked about how credible the sources that you have. Yes. Some people, if you want to read, you can find evidence for anything you want to believe.
Right. And I'll go back to that gatekeeping. People put out what they want out there to whatever they want the narrative to be, whatever they want that person's image to be. Yes. So my question is how long should someone's punishment last?
That's a great question.
Punishment. Because as you said, people can change, people can be redeemed. So,
and I'm glad you said that, because that's a great question. And honestly, I don't feel like it is for individuals to be able to decide how long someone's punishment is. If that individual accepted what they did was wrong, and they have made ways to rewrite their wrongs, who is it for us as individuals and people in the same society to keep pondering at that person with what they've done wrong?
Exactly.
They are, and they should be able to move on from a mistake that they made.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that's for, all kind of mistakes, but you can't keep nudging at somebody for everything that they do wrong. How you expect them to grow, right?
You can't.
Y'all, as you can see, this really is kind of like a part one of a larger conversation.
Yes.
This was jammed packed with a lot of stuff, you guys, and I really thoroughly enjoyed both of y'all's perspective on it. Yeah. And I will say, leaving us with that question, two things I'm going to ask you guys to do. Zion posed the question, how long should it last? Yes. I'm going to ask that you reach out to us, email us at questions@what'stheT.xyz. Questions@what'stheT.xyz. To answer the question, when somebody has a moral failing or something that's unacceptable, and let's say it's really true, they really did do it, how long should they be canceled? Yeah. Okay, so answer that question. And the other thing too is we learned that cancel culture came from supposedly a 1980 song that had the word cancel in there. We did copious research, y'all. And I know back in our day we used to use cancel like for canceling your contract. In other words, we was breaking up with you. But supposedly that's where the term came from. We couldn't find a song. So listen, you guys, we know we have a wonderful, smart audience out there. If you know the 1980 song,
help us out,
that had the word cancel in regards to breaking up with somebody, that then morphed into this whole cancel culture phenomenon, the term being used from that, please email us at the same email address.
Please. And tell us if it was a good song or not, too.
Yes. We don't care if it's a good song. I'm not.
Hey, we want to listen to it.
So you guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I teased you before and I said, you can believe what you see. He say, she say, it's really one of those things unless you see it with your own eyes. And I said, or is it? And so I'm going to tease you up to say 2 letters. A, I. We're going to talk about that next time.
Yeah. And don't you forget that dot in the middle.
Amen. So you guys, until then, let's keep this conversation brewing. Yeah. Remember, we've got to ask questions. We've got to listen to understand. Absolutely. And we've got to acknowledge the unique perspectives and challenges that each generation faces. Mm-hmm. And you guys, we got to look for that common ground because trust me, it's there. So until next time, keep sipping and keep talking. Mm-hmm. Tune in next week for another thought-provoking and entertaining conversation that bridges the generational gap, one cup at a time. See you next week.